The government is facing a major challenge, currently occupied by an elephant population of at least 100,000. Considered the world's biggest existing animal, elephants need a lot of food and space. Zimbabwe is considering culling as a way to manage the situation due to the dwindling resources to keep the giants alive. Issuing hunting licenses at a price is another option being touted. Animal activists are dead against the idea, but authorities say something must be done. For more on this, I'm now joined by Tinashe Farawo from the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority. Tinashe, good afternoon. Welcome to All Angles on ENCA. So it's going to be culling. Have you finalized, have the authorities finalized what will be the best solution going forward? Because some wildlife activists are not happy with culling.
Good afternoon. I think what is important, people need to understand what we have been doing in terms of managing our elephants. And the numbers that we are talking about, they are not an accident, but they are a result of good management practices. And in our view, we must be applauded, we must be incentivized, and our people must be incentivized for the good work that they've been doing. As a country, we have a hunting quota of 500 elephants every year. And we are in the hunting season, which runs up until the onset of the rain season, around October, November. And that hunting quota has been in place since 1991. And we have not even exhausted that quota for the past 30 years. I think the highest that we did was 250. So in other words, we have never exhausted that hunting quota. People also need to understand that people come for sport hunting for different reasons. For example, an elephant is an 18-day hunt. Some would come to connect with nature. Some would want to come just to see the moon, to see the stars, to see the sun rising, just to be in the bush for the 18 days that they'll be hunting. And probably the offtake or the actual harvest that will happen, it's more of an icing in the cake because people would enjoy just being in the bush, connect with nature. So it's not really about the actual offtake, which might excite the hunters, but the experience of being in the bush, the experience of walking barefoot, the experience of being in the mud for 18 days, sitting on a bonfire for days, hunting. You know, I think that's what people need to understand. But without doubt, of course, we've been battling a booming elephant population, which is destroying habitats, which is destroying other animals' habitat. So our problems mainly is because of the destruction of habitat for animals. Primarily, the animals are slowly becoming a danger unto themselves, and something needs to be done. And I think as a country, we last did culling in 1988. And if you look at history between 1965 and 1988, we culled about nearly 50,000 elephants, and since then we haven't done culling in the country.
So, is there a number this time around that you are working towards, and how soon are you going to begin the process? Because in my introduction to you now, I said the authorities in Zimbabwe are considering culling. Is the decision final, and when would it start, and how controlled it is going to be?
No, the decision is not final. I think what the minister said, we have a number of options to control our elephant population. And one of those options at policy level, at ministerial level, is culling. And the decision is not yet arrived at. So it's something that is on the table. It's something that government is considering. But it's not yet final. The decision is not yet made. And that's what the minister said. But I think people were misquoting the minister. But he made it clear that we have options that are on the table. And one of those options, it includes culling.
Okay, when do you expect? When should we expect a decision? Do you know?
I don't have an idea, but I think the minister made it clear. He said it that we are considering this kind of an option to deal with the overpopulation of our animals. And like I said, the biggest problem that we are facing is loss of habitat. The animals are becoming a danger unto themselves. If you go to Wange today, the amount of destruction that these animals are causing, it's not sustainable. And it's not only about the elephants that we are talking about. We are also talking about other bird species which can only breed in certain tree heights. You know very well that elephants have a tendency of knocking down trees, destroying down trees. It means the breeding cycle of other bird species will be affected. So we are not only talking about the elephants, we are also talking of other animals. And this has resulted in these animals encroaching into human settlements, killing people, destroying people's livelihoods. And as I'm speaking to you now, this year alone, we've lost 23 lives due to human-wildlife conflict, including a headman who was killed in full view of his wife while he was trying to scare away the elephants from his field. And these problems, they're happening almost every day. And we cannot continue to ignore them. Something needs to be done so that at least we can sustainably manage our wildlife. Like I said, the elephants population that we see, they are a result of good management practices. They're not an accident, and they are there in good numbers.
No, we understand that. And finally, and very brief, if you can, Mr. Farawo, what happens to the meat, for example, of culling? Just, I don't know, I've never been part of any of your past. Do you sell the meat? What happens? Is there some meat that comes out of that?
Like I said, we haven't done culling over the last more than 30 years. But what we do in some cases where we have cases where we eliminate animals, when we receive distress calls from communities, through our problem animal control as part of our management, we distribute the meat to the communities. But there are also other options that we can do in terms of valuing add the meat. We can do canning, we can do a lot of things with that meat so that we can add value to our wildlife. We can beneficiate so that our people can also derive some benefit from these animals. These are the people who bear the brand of sharing borders with wildlife. These are the people whose relatives are killed, they are destroyed, their vegetation, and they must get some benefit from this.
From that, yeah. I think, Mr. Farawo, you've made a very impassioned plea there for the consideration. And good luck to you and the authorities as you make the final decision of when to, if you're going to go the route of culling. But the reason or the need for it is pretty clear. Nobody wants their habitat to be destroyed by wild animals. And coming out of good management, I guess Zimparks in Zimbabwe have to be praised for looking after the wildlife there. Thank you very much, Tinashe Farawo. No decision yet, but the government there is considering culling. They haven't culled elephants in Zimbabwe since 1988.